Good morning, sir. My name is B7 B. Ilaw, BS Criminology 2A. And my report is about Presidential Decree number 1185, which is the uh, Fire Code of the Philippines. Republic of the Philippines, Malacanang, Manila. Presidential Decree number 1185, August 26, 1977. Repealed by the Republic Act 9514. Fire Code of the Philippines. Whereas death and injury to persons and loss and damage to property by fire have reached alarming proportion that the economic and social gains of the society are being continually undermined. Whereas in order to effect a meaningful reduction of the alarming fire losses, there is a need to develop national consciousness and the involvement of all persons in prevention and suppression of fires. Whereas fire prevention and suppression require the adoption of uniform fire safety standards, the incorporation of fire safety construction and provision of protective and safety devices in buildings and structures. Whereas there is an urgent need for agency primarily responsible for the implementation and coordination of the activities of all sectors of society and fire safety, prevention, and suppression. Whereas in order to effectively implement all efforts to minimize the occurrence of fires and their destructive effects, full financial, equipment, and personal support by the government and the private sector is necessary. Nakapalo po dito sa Fire Code of the Philippines, Presidential Decree 1185 is lahat po ng mga taong nawalan ng kagamitan o namatay man dahil sa sunog, nawalan din ng mga ano, kaarian ay pinagtitibay at pinapalakas nitong presidential decree na to na maprotektahan. Ganoon din po ang mga officer o mga nasa servisyo na magsuot ng uniforme na saka yung matulungan ang kanilang mga financial needs para sa sector na ito, na ganoon din po sa mga equipment and na mga siguro mga sasakyan din po na kinakailangan. Now, therefore, I, Ferdinand E. Marcos, Presidential of the Philippines, by virtue of the powers vested in me by the Constitution, do hereby order and decree as part of law of the land following. Section 1. Title: This decree and rules and regulation for its implementation shall be known as the Fire Code of the Philippines and shall hereinafter be referred as the Fire Code. Section 1, yun po yung titulo ng Presidential Decree na tinawag nating Fire Code of the Philippines na tinatawag nating Fire Code. Section 2, Declaration of Policies. The following are declared policies of the state. The government, with the cooperation of the private sector, shall develop and promulgate sets of standards and regulations taking into consideration the latest development in fire technology suitable to Philippine conditions. Fire prevention and fire safety shall be given equal, if not greater, emphasis as the suppression or extinguishing of fires. Fire prevention and education shall be undertaken continuously, involving all sectors of the community. Yun na nga po, the government is pinagtitibay po mga palutuntunin na mas mapatibay pa at mapalakas ang ating fire safety tsaka fire prevention. Ganoon po ang ating komunidad matuto at malaman nila kung ano pa mas maagarang paraan para ma-extinguish agad ang kung nagkaroon man ng sunog. The fire services of the Integrated National Police shall endeavor to respond to all fires before they reach critical and conflagration stages. Towards this end, the organization, administration, and operation of the fire service should be improved and developed. Its personnel and equipment augmented and effective fire alarms system set up and yun po nakalagay po sa letter C na mas palakasin pa yung ating mga asosasyon o mga organisasyon na nagpe-prevent ng sunog, katulad yun nga po ang BFP, Bureau of Fire Protection, na nung panahon po ito mas pinapalakas po ni President Ferdinand E. Marcos na mas mapatibay pa ang ating mga administrasyon na tutulong sa atin na ma ma-prevent pa ang mga ano namang mangyayaring sunog. Ganoon din po na madagdagan ng kanilang kagamitan at mga sasakyang sasakyang panlupa na nagbubuhos ng tubig upang magkaroon ng sunog. Ayun. The fire service should be professionalized for this purpose. Educational institutions should endeavor to include in their curricula courses on fire technology and fire protection engineering. Yun po nakalagay din po sa mga polisiya na na kasama po din po ito sa mga pag-aaral na sinasama na po ito sa mga learning system o academic issues. Section 3. Definition of terms. As used in this part code, the following words and phrases shall mean and construed as indicated. Abatement. Abatement. Any act that would remove or neutralize a fire hazard. Yun po yung tawag dun sa ah ah anumang akto na gagawin ay na ma mapaano ang apoy mapaliit o mapahina ay abatement. Administrator, any person who acts as agent of the owner and manages use of a building for him. Administrator, blasting agent, any material or mixture consisting of fuel and oxidizer used to set off explosive. Cellulose in nitrate or nitrocellulose, a highly combustible and explosive compound produced by reaction of nitric acid with cellulose material. Cellulose, nitrate, plastic, pyroxylene, and plastic substance materials or compound having cellulose nitrate, cellulose as base. Mga tinasabi po dito yung mga maaring magka magbigay ng maging sanhi ng pagkasunog o pagputok ng ng nagsasanhi ng sunog sa isang komunidad o sa isang tahanan. Combustible, flammable, or inflammable, destructive or materials that are easily set on fire. Combustor fiber and readily ignitable and free burning fire fibers such as cotton, oakum, rugs, waste cloth, waste paper, kapok, hay, straw, Spanish moss, exclusive, and other similar materials commonly used in commerce. Combusted liquid, any liquid having a flash point at or above or 37.8 Celsius or 100 Fahrenheit is corrosive liquid, and a liquid which causes fire when it contact with organic matter or with certain chemicals. Curtain board, a vertical panel of non-combustible or fire-resistive materials attached to and extending below the bottom cord of the roof to process to divide the underside of the roof into separate compartments so that the heat will be directed upwards up to a roof vent. Yun po, ito po yung mga sinasabing mga posibilidad na magbigay nga po ng maging sanhi ng pagkasunog. Mas mabuting iwasan na lang po natin. Cryogenic descriptive of any material which by its nature or as a result of its reaction with other elements reduces a rapid drop in temperature of the immediate surroundings. Damper, a normally open device installed inside an air duct system which automatically closes to resist the passage of the smoke or fire. Yun po yung parang yung nag-aalis agad ng usok kung sakali mang nagkakaroon ng parang konting short circuit at medyo lumiliyab-liyab na. Damper, distillation, the process of first raising the temperature and separate the more volatile from the less volatile parts and then cooling and condensing the resulting vapor so as to produce a nearly purified substance. Duct system, a continuous passive way for the transmission of air. Thus, a finely powdered substance which, when mixed with air in the proper proportion and ignite, will cause an explosion. Electrical arc, an extreme hot luminous bridge formed by passage an electric current across a space between two conductors or terminals due to incandescence of the conducting vapor. Ember, a hot piece or lump that remains after a material has partially burned and is still oxidizing The manifestation of flames. Finishes. Materials used as a final coating of a surface or another protective purposes. Fire. Fire. The active principle of burning characterized by the heat and light of combustion. Fire trap. Building unsafe in case of fire because it will burn easily or because it lacks adequate excess of fire escapes. Fire alarm and the visual or audible signal produced by a device or system to warn the occupants of the buildings of firefighting elements of the presence of or danger or fire to enable them to undertake immediately action to save life and properties to suppress the fire. Fire door, a fire resistive door described for openings in fire suppression walls or partitions. Example po nito yung mga fire exit po, mga daan upang kung sa osma ng sakuna ng ah, kasunugan ay ito yung madadaanan natin. Fire hazard, any condition or act which increases or may cause an increase in the probability of the occurrence of fire or which may obstruct, delay, hinder, or interfere with firefighting operations and the safeguarding of life and property. Fire lane, the portion of roadway or public that should keep be open and unobstructed at all times for the expedient operation of fire fighting units. Fire protective and fire safety device, any device intended for protection of buildings or persons to include but not limited to built-in protection systems such as sprinklers and the automatic extinguishing system detectors or heat for heat, smoke, and combustion products and other warning system components, personal protective equipment such as fire blankets, helmets, fire suits, gloves, other garments that may be put on or worn by a person to protect themselves. Example po nito yung mga kagamitan po ng mga fire officer natin, yung mga makakapal na tela na pinapapasok sa oras man ng operasyon sa pa, sa ano na sunog, yung mga sprinklers na nakalagay sa mga sasakyan, yung mga hose ng tubig na nagpe-prevent ng sunog. Fire safety constructions refers to design and installation of walls, barriers, doors, window, vents, means of egress, etc. Integral to incorporated into building or structure in order to minimize danger to life from fire, smoke, fumes, or panic because before the building is evacuated. These features are also designed to achieve, among others, safe and rapid evacuation of people through means of egress, sealed, smoke, or fire. Nakalagay po dito na yung mga building na bibigyan ng gagawa ng halimbawa ng inspection ay dapat na may mga gantong mga construction na pagkakagawa sa building na maagarang prevent agad o maagapan ang kung magkakaroon ng sunog. Flashpoint, the minimum temperature at which any materials give way for insufficient concentration to form an ignitable mixture with air. Forcing, a process where a piece of metal is heated prior to changing its shape or dimension. Fulminate, a kind of stable explosive compound which explosive by percussion. Hazardous operation process, any act of manufacturing, fabrication, conversion, etc. that uses or produces materials which are likely to cause fire or explosion. Horizontal exit, passage from one building to another or through or around a wall in the same level. Sample po nito ay yung halimbawa po ay may dalawang building po na magkadikit, halimbawa mayroon silang horizontal exit na magkonektado sa isa't isa na pantay ang kanilang level ng floor. Ito yung example nito. Hose box, a box or cabinet where fire hoses, bulbs, and other equipment are stored and arranged for firefighting. Example po nito yung mga nasa building po na may hose na maaaring gamitin sa oras ng emergency kung nagkakaroon ng sunog, yung mahahaba pong nakatali dun na may kadikit na fire extinguisher pa po. Hose reel, as cylindrical device turning on an axis around which a fire hose is wound and connected. Hypergolic fuel, a rocket or liquid propellant which consists of combination of fuels and oxidizers which ignite spontaneously on contact with each other. Industrial baking and drying, the industrial process of subjecting materials to heat or purpose removing solvents or mixture moisture from the same, and or fuse certain chemicals to from form a uniform glazing the surface of materials being treated. Jumper, a piece of material or an electrical conductor used to bypass a safety device in an electrical system. Occupancy, the purpose for which building or portion thereof is used or intended to be used. Occupant, any person who actually occupying and using a building or portions thereof by virtue of this contract with the owner or administrator or by permission or surveillance of the latter. Organic peroxide, a strong oxidating organic compound which releases oxygen readily. It causes fire when in contact with combustible materials, especially under condition of high temperature. Uh, Overloading, the use of one or more electrical appliances or devices which draw or consume electrical current beyond the design capacity of the existing electrical system. The owner, the person who holds the legal right of possession or title to a building or will or real property. Ang may-ari po ng ah, infrastruktura na nagpapatunay na sa kanya yun, yun po ang magandang halimbawa po nito. Oxidizing material, a material readily yields oxygen in quantities sufficient to stimulate or support combustion. Pressured or forced drop burning equipment, type or burner where the fuel is subjected to pressure prior to discharge into the combustion chamber, which includes fans or other provisions for the introduction of air at above normal atmosphere into the same combustion chamber. Public assembly building, any building or structure where 50 or more people gathered or congregated gather or assembled for any purpose. Public way and street, alley or the other strip of the land unobstructed from the ground of the sky, dedicated or others permanently appropriated for public use. Pyrophoric, descriptive or any substance that ignites spontaneously when exposed to air. Yun po yung mga kunting ano lang po ng hangin ay pumuputok agad. Refining, a process where impurities and or deleterious materials are removed from a mixture in order to produce a pure element of compound. It should also refer to partial distillation and exolysis. Self-closing door, automatic closing doors that are designed to confine smoke and heat and delay the spread of fire. Melting or fusing or metallic ores or compounds so as to separate impurities from pure metals. Sprinkler system, an integrated network or hydraulic design, piping installed in a building, structure or area with outlets arranging in a systematic pattern which automatically discharge water when activated by heat or combustion products from fire. Standpipe system, a system vertically pipes in building to which fire hoses can be attached on each floor, with including by which is water is made available to the outlets as needed. Yun po yung mga sa nalalaman ko po ay yun po yung mga nakakabit na maliliit sa mga building na pag nakaramdam ng usok ay biglang puputok ang tubig upang maagapan kung mayroon mga sunog. Vestibule o passageway, hall or antechamber between the outdoor doors and interior parts of house building. Vertical shaft, an enclosed vertical space or passage that extends from floor to floor as well as from the base of the top of the building. Section 4. Applicability of the code. The provisions of fire code shall apply to all persons and all private and public buildings, facilities or structure erected or constructed before and after its effectivity. Ito po yung pag-apply po ng code ay mas pinatitibay pa po na lahat po ng kahit pribado o pampublikong mga struktura ay dapat maapektuhan ito bago at pagkatapos man ng code na ito. Section 5. Grace period. The owner, administrator, or occupant of buildings of structure existing at the time of effectivity of the fire code is given 2 years to comply with provisions thereof on the fire safety, construction, and on protective and warning system. However, the Director General of the Integrated National Police may prescribe a shorter period depending upon the degree of hazard to be recorded and the cost of extent of the work to be done. Uh, Yun po, dapat po mag-comply ang may-ari ng building o occupant ng isang building na na naapektuhan na sila ng kanilang vehicle libin na binibigyan ng 2 taon. Section 6. Responsibility for the enforcement of this code. The fire service under the direct supervision and control of the Director General of the Integrated National Police, hereinafter referred to as the Director General, shall be responsible for the enforcement of this code as well as pertinent provisions of other laws pertaining to fire protection or fire safety with the approval of the Secretary of National Defense. The Director General is authorized to yung po binibigyan po ng otoridad ng isang Director General na na sa mga sumusunod: issue implementing rules and regulation and prescribe administrative penalties. Therefore, recognize the fire service of the Integrated National Police as may be necessary and appropriate. Ito ay tuluyang kinakailangan o na mahalaga. Enter into long-term agreement either through public buildings or negotiation to include advance payments, therefore, for the acquisition of fire prevention, fire protection, and firefighting equipment, supplies and materials, and related technical services necessary for the fire services. Bibigyan kumbaga, binibigyan po ng mga firefighting equipment, katulad naman po ng mga helmet nila, sakyan, mga wire kung sa may electric circuit man, palakol kung hindi yun mabuksan ng pintuan, ganun. Enter into memoranda of agreement with other departments, bureaus, agencies, offices, and corporations of the government, as well as private institutions, in order to define areas of cooperation and coordination and delegate responsibility on fire prevention, education, fire safety, fire prevention, fire suppression, and other matters of common concern. Section 7. Technical staff. The Director General shall constitute technical staff on highly qualified persons who are knowledgeable on fire prevention, fire safety, and fire suppression. They may be drawn not only from the organic members of the Integrated National Police and other government offices and agencies, but also from other sources. In the latter case, they will either be appointed into the service or hired as consultants in accordance with the law. The technical staff shall study, review, and evaluate latest developments and standards on fire technology, prepare plans on fire safety prevention and suppression, and evaluate implementation thereof, develop programs on the professionalization of the fire services. Ang mga qualified person daw po na nakikita ng Director General na madaming alam, may nalalaman sa pag-prevent ng ay matatawag daw po consultants na siyang mag-implement din po ng fire code. Program on the professionalization part, coordinate with private institution and for the offering of college courses on fire technology and fire protection, engineering, propose amendments on the fire code, advise the Director General on any matter brought to his attention, and perform such other function as directed on any matter brought to his attention, and perform such other function as directed by the higher authorities. Section 8. Inspection, safety measures, fire safety, construction, protective, and warning systems, as may be defined and provided in the rules and regulation. Owners, administration, or occupants of buildings, of structures in their premises or facilities, and other responsible persons shall be required to comply with the following as may be appropriate na kailangan. Inspection requirement. A fire safety inspection shall be conducted by the Director General or his duly authorized representative as prerequisite or to the grants of permits and license by local governments and other government agencies. Example po nito ay yung mga kung hindi man po Director General ang kaya yung kanyang pinahintulutan na mag-conduct ng inspection sa isang building kung gaano ba kung paano ah makaligtas sa sunog. Halimbawa, isang specific na building na inspection nila, na titingnan nila kung saan ba ilalagay ang fire exit, saan ilalagay ang fire extinguisher, checkin nila yung mga ceiling, dingding, upang maprevent agad kung sakali magkakaroon ng apoy at hindi agad ito maglaki. Yun po ang ibig sabihin ng inspection. Use or occupancy of buildings, structures, and facilities or their premises, including the installation of fire protection and fire safety equipment, an electrical system in any building or structure or facility, storage, handling, or use of explosive or of combustible, flammable, toxic, and other hazardous material. Yan po. Tinitingnan din nila kung meron bang mga posibilidad na mag-cause ng apoy. Katulad na lamang po ng halimbawa, checkin din nila yung mga electric wires na kung sakali ay pag nagdiklab ay mag-cause ng apoy. Tine-check din po kasama sa inspection. Safety measures for hazardous materials. Fire safety measures shall be required for the manufacture, storage, handling, and or use of hazardous materials involving cellulose, nitrate, plastic of any kind, combustible fibers, such as foam, rubber, sponge rubber, and plastic foam, flammable and combustible liquids or gases of any classification, flammable paints, varnishes, stains, and organic coatings, high-filled or widely spread combustible stock, metallic, magnesium in any form, corrosive liquids or oxiding materials or organic peroxide, blasting agents, explosive, special industrial explosive materials, fireworks materials of any kind of form. Nakalagay po dito na yung mga posibilidad na magkaroon ng mag-cause ng sunog ay tinitingnan din nila kung mga katulad na lamang ng mga animal oil, ganoon, kung ito man ay malapit sa heat, kung yung ito ay kung ano ba pag nagkahanginan ay magkukos ng apoy, o kung sa sikat man ng araw, ganun. Safety measures for hazardous operation. Nilalagyan po nila to ng agwat o yung layo nila sa isa't isa. Operation process. Fire safety measures should be required for the following hazardous operation process: welding or soldering, industrial baking, drying, waste disposal, pursued for scrap burning equipment, smelting and forging, motion picture project using. Yun po, ganun din po. Mine-measure po nila yung kaligtasan at seguridad na hindi magkakaroon ng sunog o magkakaroon ng nagkukos ng apoy. Yung pag-welding or soldering, industrial baking, drying, ganun sa isang kumpanya o isang building. Provisions on fire safety construction. The protective and warning system owners, occupants, or administrator or buildings, structures, and the premises of facilities except such other buildings or structures as may be exempted in the rules of regulation to be implemented under Section 6 hereof shall incorporate and provide therein fire safety construction, protective and warning system shall be developed and implement fire safety programs to wit: fire protection features such as sprinkler system, hose boxes, hose reels, standing pipe system, and other firefighting equipment. Provision, ito po yung mga kung ano po dapat ang ilagay mga building, halimbawa o kaya sa isang bahay na dapat po may nakahanda na agad na pang iwas sunog. Fire alarm system sa yung mga pag mayroon ng apoy, ito yung mga bell na alarm para ma-alarma ang mga tao sa paligid na nagkakaroon ng sunog. Firewalls to separate adjoining buildings or warehouse storage areas from other occupancies in same building. Provisions for confining the fire in the source such as fire resistive floors and walls extending up to the next floor, slab or roof. Curtain boards and other fire containing or stopping components. Termination of all exits in area according safe passage to a public way or safe dispersal area. Stairway, vertical shafts, horizontal exits, and other means of egress sealed from the smoke and heat. a fire exit plan for each floor of the building, showing the routes from each other room to exist displayed permanently on the door shut of such room. Self-closing power, restrictive doors, fire dampers, roof vents, properly marked and list light exits with prohibition for emergency lights to adequate illuminate exit ways in case of power failure. Mga daan po na maaari nating daanan kung sakaling nag ano, nag malaki na ang apoy, mga fire exit nga po. Section 9, prohibited acts. The following are declared as prohibited acts and omission: obstructing or blocking the exit ways or across the buildings clearly marked or fire safety purposes such as but not limited to aisles and interior rooms, any part of stairways, hallways, corridors, balconies or bridges leading to a stairway or exit, any kind of tolerating and or allowing said violation. Mga pinagbabawal pong mga gawain. Mga harangan po yung daan paano palabas kung sa oras ng sunog. Constructing gates, entrances and walkways to building and components and yards which obstructs the orderly and easy passage of fighting vehicles and equipment. Mga mga gate ho, mga dadaanan ho ng ating mga firefighting vehicles na dapat ay hindi hinaharangan o nilalagyan ng kung anong makakasagabal sa pagdating ng ating mga fire officer. Prevention, interference, or obstruction of any operation of the fire service or of duly organized and authorized fire brigades. Obstructing, designating fire lances or access to fire hydrants. Overcrowding and or admission of person beyond the authorized capacity in the movie, houses, theaters, collision, or other public assembly buildings. Katulad na po mga public assembly buildings, mga pampublikong mga pagkasama-sama. Kailangan din po ay hindi ito mawalan ng mga fire exit kung sakali magkaroon ng sunog at mapupuntahan agad na mga tutulong o mag-aagarang mag-alis ng sunog. Lacking fire exits during period when people are inside the building. Bawal din pong gawin yan na ilak ang fire exit sa isang building habang ito ay habang ang mga tao ay nasa loob pa. Kadalasan po kasi kung nagkaroon ng sunog sa isang building, kung nakalak ang fire exit ay mas mahihirapan pa pong tumakas o lumabas ang mga tao sa loob at matatagalan pang makatakas. Prevention or obstruction of the automatic closure of fire doors or smoke partitions or dampers. Use of fire protective or firefighting equipment of the fire service other than for fighting except in the emergencies where their use are justified. Yung tamang paggamit po ng fire service at mga kagamitan ay dapat po sa pang emergency lang at hindi kailangan ay kung saan gagamitin. Giving false or malicious fire alarms, mga paggamit ng pag-ring ng mga fire alarm na hindi man talaga wala man talagang emergency o agarang problema na na patungkol sa pagkasunog. Bawal din ho ito. Smoking in prohibited areas as may be determined by the fire service or throwing of cigars, burning objects in places which start a cause of fire. Mga bawal din gawin, bawa ay nagsisigarilyo yung isang tao, tinapon ito sa may mga magkokos ng sunog, bawal din po ito. Abandoning or leaving building or structure by occupant o owner without appropriate safety measures, nang hindi man lang tinitingnan o tine-check ang isang building, at hayaan na lamang na may tumira o ano man lang na hindi man nagkakandak ng inspection, lalo na sa mga pampubliko o pampribado, lalo na yung mga malaki at magagara na building. Removing, destroying, tampering, or obliterating any authorized mark, seal, sign, or tag post required by the fire service for fire safety in any building, structure, or processing equipment, and use of jumpers of tampering with electrical lighting or overloading the electrical system beyond designated capacity, or such other party practices that would tend to undermine the fire safety features of the electrical system. Yun po, bawal po yung mga ganong jumper na magkokos ng apoy na 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 hindi man lang na tingnan o na nasiguro ang kaligtasan na hindi magkokos ng apoy. Section 10. Abatement of fire hazard. Fire hazard shall be abated immediately for this purpose. The Director General or his duly authorized representative may issue other order for such abatement if the owner, administrator, or occupant of buildings, structure, and their premises or facilities does not abate the same within the period fixed in said order. The occupancy permit or permit to operate shall be cancelled. Any building or structure declared as a fire trap or is causing clear and present fire danger to adjoining establishment and habitation shall be declared public nuisance. Mga walang pakialam, ganun. Dapat ito ay mabigyan ng pansin, mga hindi nila nalalaman kung ano ba ang mas makakapagpaiwas o masisiguro ang hindi pagkakaroon ng sunog sa isang building. As defined in the Civil Code of the Philippines, if the assessed value of the building or structure is not more than 20,000 pesos, the owner, administrator, occupant thereof shall be abate the hazard within 30 days or if the assessed value is more than 20,000 pesos with 60 days from receipt of the order declaring said building or structure public nuisance. Otherwise, the director or duly authorized representative shall forthwith cause its summary abatement. Summary is abatement as used herein shall remain all corrective measures undertaken to abate hazards, which shall include but not limited to remodeling, repairing, extending, constructing, removal, and demolition, either partial or total, of the building or structure. The expenses occurred by the government for such summary abatement shall be borne by the owner, administrator, or occupant. Sinasabi po dito na ang may karapatan dito ay yung may-ari, kaya dapat maging matalim ang kaisipan kung sakali mang ito ay hindi safe o kayang masusunog agad sa pag isang diklab ng apoy. Section 11. Enforcement of the LEA. If the owner, administrator, or occupant fails to reimburse the government of the expenses incurred in summer abatement within 90 days from the completion of such abatement, the building or structure shall be sold to a public auction in accordance with existing laws and rules. No property subject of LEA under Section 10 hereof may be sold at price lower than the abatement expenses incurred by the government. The property shall be forfeit in favor of the government in the highest bid not at least equal to abatement expenses. Kung hindi man po na i-comply ang isang building within 90 days, ay ito po ay ilalagay sa auction o magkakaroon ng bidding para hindi hindi magamit ng kung sino man na magiging pabaya. Section 12. Penalties. An administrative fine. Any person who violates any provision of the Fire Code or any of the rules and regulations promulgated under Section 6 hereof shall be penalized by an administrative fine of not exceeding 12,000 pesos or in the proper case by stoppage of operations by any closure of such building. Ang mga taong man na naglumabag o nagkaroon ng pagkakamali para na hindi masunod ang fire code ay magbabayad ng 12,000 para lamang sa kanilang penalty. Structures and their premises or facilities which do not comply with the requirements or by both such administrative fine and closure, stoppage of operation to be imposed by the Director General, provided that the payment of the fine, storage of operation, and or closure such building structures and their premises. The decision of the Director General under this subsection may be appealed to the Secretary of the National Defense within 15 days from the date of receipt of the order imposing administrative fine, stopping the operation or closure. The decision of the Secretary of National Defense in, shall be final and executory. Punitive in case of willful failure to correct deficiency or abate the fire hazard as provided in preceding subsection. The violator shall upon conviction be punished by imprisonment or not less than 6 months or more than 6 years, or fined of not more than 20,000 pesos or both such fine and imprisonment, provided however that in the case of comprehension firm. Punitive yung mga tao po na nag-violate ng fire code, nag-cause ng fire hazard, ay maaaring makulong ng mas mababa sa 6 na buwan at mas mataas sa 6 na taon, na mayroong kabayaran na 20,000. Provided finally that where the violation is threatened by loss of life and or damage to property, the violator shall be proceed against under the applicable provisions of the revised penal code. Kung ang violator man po ay na nag-cause ng madaming pagkawala o ng buhay o damage sa isang property, ay ma-apply na po sa kanya ang provision of the revised penal code. Appropriation and sources of income to support the manpower, infrastructure, and equipment needs of the fire services of the Integrated National Police. The sum of 100 million pesos is hereby appropriated. Therefore, at the same of the such amount as may be necessary to attain objectives of the fire code shall be appropriated and included in the annual appropriation of the Integrated National Police for the next 10 years. Tamang pagbibigay ng kinakailangan na income o yung kanilang kikitain na 100 million pesos. To partially provide for the funding of the fire services, the following taxes and fees which shall occur to the general fund of the national government and hereby imposed to pay fees to be charged or issuance of certificates, permits, and licenses as provided for in section 8. 1/10 of the percentum of the verified estimated value of buildings or structures to be erected from the owner of, therefore, but not to exceed 50,000 pesos, 1/2 to be paid prior to the issuance of the building permit and the balance of after final inspection and prior to issuance of the use and occupancy permit. Yung isa pa pong pinagkakita source of income po nila ay yung mga building po na nagpapakandak ng inspection na may bayad na ayon na maaaring pagkuhaan ng income. 100 of 1% of the assessed value of the buildings or structures annually payable upon payment of the real estate tax except on structures used as single family dwellings. Mga isa pa rin pong mga source of income na mga tax, yan, mga tao ng ating namayan sa LEA, ating komunidad. 2% of all premiums excluding the insurance premiums for the sale of fire, earthquake, and explosion hazard insurance collected by companies, persons, or agents licensed to sell such insurance in the Philippines. Mga nakukuha na maaaring ibenta na nagkokos ng mga pagkasunog o pagsabog, ay doon din sila nakakuha ng source of income. 2% of gross sales of companies, person, or agents selling firefighting equipment, appliances, or devices including hazard detection and warning system. 2% of the service fees received from fire, earthquake, and explosion hazard service and cost of loss of insurance adjustment companies doing business in the Philippines through agents. Yun po yung mga mga porsyento na pinagkukuha ng income ng ating mga fire services na maaaring magbigay sa kanila ng income. Section 14, collection of taxes, fees, and fines. All taxes, fees, and fines provided in Section 13 hereof shall be collected by the city, a municipal treasurer concerned or remittance to the national security. Yung mga binabayad po na taxes, mga kabayaran, mga fine, mga dapat po ang kukolektahin ng municipal treasurer or city treasurer na ilalagay sa ating national treasury. Separatability clause. If any provision of this code or the application of such provision to any person or circumstances declared unconstitutional, the remainder of the code or the application of such provision to other persons or circumstances shall not be affected by such declaration. Separate po ang fire code sa ibang code na hindi naman hindi naman hindi man applicable sa fire code. Repealing clause. Provisions of Presidential Decree number 442, otherwise known as the Labor Code of the Philippines, as amended as Presidential Decree 1096, otherwise known as the National Building Code, and other laws, decrees, others, or regulation in conflict or inconsistent with the provision of this fire code are hereby repealed or modified accordingly. Kaugnay ng ating fire code ang mga National Building Code, Labor Code na mismo na nagpapalakas palalo at nagpapatibay sa ating fire code. Section 17, effectivity. This fire code and its rules regulation shall take effect 30 days after the publication in newspaper after the execution done in the city of Manila this 26th day of August in year of our Lord 1977. Yun po ang itong code na ito ay napagana o nagkaroon ng epektibo nung after 30 days na mamailagay sa newspaper, sa dyaryo, na pagkatapos ng kanilang publication ay 30 days muna bago ito na impose na amend na-imply na-apply sa Manila noong August 26, 1977. Yun naman po, ako po si Vince Raven B. Ilaw. Ito po yung mga mahalagang na section ng ating fire code, yung protektahan at maagapan ang ating isang building o isang pamayanan na ma-prevent ang isang apoy o at maagapan na hindi agad magkaroon ng sunog. Ganoon din po sa mga fire services, sa mga fire officer na binibigyan ng pondo o binigyang halaga lalo ang kanilang mga serbisyo, na binigyan ng mga kagamitan, mas pinatibay ang kanilang mga gawain o tungkulin. Ganoon din po sa mga tao na lumalabag, magkakaroon sila ng naayon na penalty o kabayaran sa pagkakamali nila. Yun po, ako po si Vince Raven Bilaw, BS Criminology 2A. Maraming salamat po, sir.